All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Sinhaya by Yeshem, Yeshua, HaMashiach, Baruch Adonai, Shalom, Elect, and Sojourners of Israel. Today, I'm going to do something a little different. A couple years ago, there was a username by the name of Captain America that pretty much did something that I never do. But he or she was very respectful and kind of got me going into a mini debate. And there's a lot of great information in that back and forth, and I thought it would be great to put out there for many of you who are kind of new to the whole E1B1A thing, and how it relates to the ancient Israelite nation and our people. So I want to share that, and I really do that because I never debate. I just kind of put the information out there, let it be what it is, and we can discuss it, things of that nature. I've literally turned down pretty exorbitant fees, quote unquote debate fees. I'm not in this thing for theater or trying to impress anyone or any of that, but a young lady asked me something on the board, and a shout out to Christine. She said she wanted to know what I thought about what's going on in Israel right now. And I try to stay away from political stuff or whatever, because they delete comments or get your video, pulled down, all kind of stuff. So I kind of stay away from stuff that's really, really political or whatever. But, for those of you who may not be aware, they're basically trying to kick out, I think it's like 45 of the African American residents that live in Israel and have lived there pretty much a lot of them their whole lives. And they never gave them citizenship, never gave them any type of legal status. So now they're giving them 60 days to leave. I mean, I can't imagine what they must be feeling or going through to feel like, somewhere you've been all your life and someone's telling you have to leave. I mean, it's just so sad, man. I mean, our people just from just being disfellowshipped from our own land, and to just all the captivities we've. I mean, I just so many thoughts go through my mind. I just feel for them. And personally, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to help them, help out. If someone wants to start a GoFundMe or whatever the case may be, I'll contribute. Because they're still our people, man. It's sad. I can't even imagine, man, what they're going through right now, what the thoughts. That's all they ever knew was Israel. That's all they've lived. The only place they've lived. So, but I tell you, it's and this is also a thought of mine. Someone with I'm surprised that with the comprehensive E1B1A video I did, that no one kind of took that and ran with it. And what I mean is that no one with what I put through with that 3-hour video, literally someone could literally take that to court and put on our case in a court of law about us being the children of Israel. And with everything that's included in that video, I really feel that we would have a good shot at proving our case in court, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's not about what we think or what we feel. It's about what we can prove. And one thing I do know is that, when you start talking about genetics, because, we can't go into court with the Bible, but we can definitely go in there with genetics and, put the two together, especially if it lines up with our DNA. So anyway, enough on that. And, hopefully I answered your question, Christine, and welcome. I don't think I've ever seen you. So anyway, let's get into this debate with Dr. YehoshuaBenEphraim versus Captain America. Let's get it. Debate. Dr. YehoshuaBenEphraim versus Captain America. Is E1B1A the haplotype of the lost children of Israel? Captain America. E1B1A is predominantly found in Negroid people. Just because it's found in them, it does not mean its origins are with them. The only reason E1B1A is so prolific is because of the Bantu expansion, which allowed for this haplogroup to spread west into West Africa, into the southeast region of Africa. Due to this expansion, a lot of diversity of earlier Y haplogroups in Africa were lost. Bantu people are a very recent people. They aren't the oldest amongst Africans. Ask yourself, where did they come from? E1B1A itself isn't Negroid. It's closely linked with E1B1B, which is found in North Africans and Northeast Africans, but also in Mediterranean populations and Arabs and Jews. Dr. DrYehoshuaBenEphraim. Your response is respectful, and your response is intelligent. So I will momentarily build with you. You made some half points and some pretty good points. The reason why E1B1A is so prolific, as you said, is due to all the captive nations that seized or occupied the Holy Land of Jerusalem, to include but not limited to the Babylonians, Greeks, Assyrians, Romans, Greeks, etc. Probably the biggest dent in the E1B1A, Bantu/Negroes Hebrews, had to have been the deportation of the 10 tribes of Israel by the Assyrian king Shalmaneser V, which was the equivalent of a mass exodus of the original inhabitants and their E1B1A haplotype. Hence, why, to this day, more rogue and European haplotypes are found in the holy city of Jerusalem, because those are the uninvited invaders whose DNA samples is being extracted from excavated grave sites and the like. You are correct. Bantus aren't the oldest of Africans, quote unquote. That distinction would probably fall to the Ethiopians. But Bantus go back further than 4,000 years as well. E1B1A and E1B1B are still subclades of each other, even though they represent different nations of black people. I get that. But when it's all said and done, the Most High's chosen nation came out of haplogroup E, and his covenant was made with Abraham's seed Isaac, E1B haplotype, who begat Jacob, E1B1A, who begat 12 Negro sons with 4 different Negro Hebrew women, and ultimately made up the 12 tribes of Israel. Ephraim and Manasseh was grafted in with Joseph, and they both make up the house of Joseph. You are totally incorrect. E1B1A is completely Negroid, and our people is who the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary was referring to when it simply repeated Genesis 10 and 6 and stated Ham became the progenitor of the dark races of Africa, Egyptians, Ethiopians, Africans, and Libyans, but not the Negroes. Our DNA verifies this. This isn't Chinese math. All this is a bunch of people from Psalms 83 and 4 who want the Negroes to remain ignorant, downtrodden, lesser, and slaves. The truth hurts, I get it, but we no longer have to accept a bunch of lies and half-truths. Our very own DNA proves conclusively that the Negroes, Y DNA haplotype, E1B1A, and all of its subgroups are the seeds of Jacob, children of Israel, and the chosen nation of the Most High God of Israel. Deuteronomy 7 and 6, cursed to go back into slavery by way of ships. Deuteronomy 28:68. Captain America. Honestly, you raise some interesting points too. Genetics is still relatively new, and new discoveries are being made every year, and they've now begun sequencing DNA from ancient remains and skeletons. So hopefully that'll shed some light on the DNA of previous populations. One interesting find was that Egyptian Pharaoh Ramses III was found to be of Y haplotype E1B1A. So by your definition, he is of the Israelite bloodline, yet he was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh belonging to a nation that enslaved the Jews? What if all other pharaohs from previous dynasties end up belonging to E1B1A haplogroup? Wouldn't that put a dent in your theory? Dr. DrYehoshuaBenEphraim. Thank you. And truthfully, the whole King Ramses III supposedly being E1B1A, I honestly don't believe, and sounds more like propaganda. But there are a couple things at work here. Number one, Genesis 10 and 6 clearly tells us that the Egyptians are from the bloodline of Ham by way of Mitzrayim. What was Ham's bloodline wide DNA haplotype? E1B1B. The same haplotype that those other races / nations of people Genesis 10 and 6 said our Hamites walk around with today. That would be the Ethiopians, the Africans originally called Canaanites, Libyans, and the original Egyptians. And since we know by 1 Chronicles 9 and 1 that the genealogy of the children of Israel was and is of the utmost importance to the Most High, if King Ramses III was E1B1A and an Israelite, his lineage would have been allotted for and recorded in Torah, as all the other children of Israel and their genealogies are and required to be. But it is not. Number 2, the Israelites were held in bondage in Egypt for 430 years. So clearly, an overabundance of Israelites would have lived and died there, thereby having a whole bunch of dry bones that would have the E1B1A DNA haplotype. So finding a bunch of old bones in Egypt that are E1B1A doesn't do anything to my quote-unquote theory. After a people lived in some country for 430 years, I can see there would and should be a whole bunch of E1B1A buried in Egypt somewhere. I mean, that's a given. The ancient Israelites are and were uncomfortably wed to the original Egyptians. That said, I didn't bat an eye when the report came out that one single body they discovered is somehow that of King Ramses III, without a shadow of doubt, tested his DNA, and supposedly is E1B1A. Well, if that's the case, either the Bible Genesis 10 and 6 is lying, that says specifically the Egyptians are from the bloodline of Ham, E1B1B, or this DNA report on King Ramses III is. Me personally, I'll go with the DNA report being an error on King Ramses III. I believe that to be disinformation and a lie to make Negroes / Hebrews think that they're descended from the bloodline of Egyptians. Number 3, let me play devil's advocate for a little bit and say that the body was in fact King Ramses III and he possessed the E1B1A DNA haplotype. There are 2 distinct possibilities why that would be. A, he could have been doing what Moses did, i.e. being a genetic Hebrew, living his life as an Egyptian. Only difference is Moses was called by God to deliver our people out of bondage and step back into his rightful place as a Hebrew Israelite, while King Ramses III lived and died as an Egyptian, although carrying the bloodline of a Hebrew. B, it's very possible King Ramses III's father was in fact a Hebrew Israelite, and his Egyptian mother kept it a secret and raised him, as the Pharaoh's daughter did with Moses when she found him as a baby, and raised him exclusively as an Egyptian. But as usual, the DNA reveals the truth that Ramses III was a genetic Hebrew Israelite. Number 4, and lastly, both nations of people, original Israelites and Egyptians, were a dark-skinned Negroid type people. And again, we know that because Moses blended in perfectly, if the Pharaoh accepted him as his grandson and didn't give it a second thought. So I said that to say this: whether King Ramses III was E1B1A or E1B1B, the absolute bottom line is it still proves he was a very dark-skinned, i.e. black man. And either way, it blows a hole in the unsubstantiated assumptions that the original Egyptians were right. Captain America. Dr. Ephraim, I really like your approach, combining science and religious texts. A lot of people, especially atheists in the past, believed science was a tool to disprove religion. Now it seems genetics / science is actually doing the opposite and confirming what's been said in Scripture. It'll be interesting to see what new developments are made in the next few years. Where are you with matrilineal lineage of the Jews? Mitochondrial DNA is solely inherited from the mother in a direct line and experiences less mutation and it is a more stable element of genetics to study when it comes to ancestry. Also, am I right in believing Judaism has a strong matrilineal system? I read online the following statement, quote, "The essence of a Jew is his Jewish soul, his Jewish identity. This is inherited from the mother. His tribe, a revelation of projection, the way his Judaism is practiced and actualized, is begotten from the father. So why haven't you paid much interest in mitochondrial DNA of Jews/Israelites when their very essence/soul is associated with their mother?" Dr. YehoshuaBenEphraim. Okay, I'll answer your questions in the order in which they were asked. With respect to mitochondrial DNA as it relates to the lineage of the children of Israel, two things. Number one, the Most High established that genealogy goes through the male line, starting with Adam in the book of Genesis, chapter 5. This is why, again, in 1 Chronicles 9:1, all Israel, that means every single person that claims to be an Israelite, all Israel had to establish/reckon their bloodline genealogy and have their name literally in the book of genealogy. Obviously, this was established by being able to trace your male line. That's why in the Bible, you start seeing the males who begat which male and so on and so forth. So, by the law of God, the only way a man can establish his bloodline as a child of Israel is through his father. That whole matrilineal lineage proving Jewishness through the mother stuff is a byproduct of the converted Khazarian and Ashkenazi Jews that occupy Israel since 1948 and still do to this day. Which leads me to this. The so-called Jewish agency for Israel are made up of a bunch of European converted Jews who practice the religion of Judaism but are not from the seed of Isaac and Jacob, and they were granted exclusive power and rights to determine who is quote-unquote Jewish and who isn't. Now let that marinate for a second. They are the ones who went against God's mandate of male lineage being established through the male and started the whole Jewishness goes through the mother prerequisite for being recognized as a Jew. So how does God, the Almighty, feel about them basically squatting in a land that is not theirs biblically, pretending to be a people they are not, haters of Christ, the Messiah, and the list goes on? Well, I'll let him tell you. Revelation 2:9, "I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Revelation 3:9, "Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." So clearly God is letting them and the world know that he knows who they really are. They've been lying and pretending to be his chosen people and are nothing close to that. And with the very last line of Revelation 3:9, he gives a nod, or like a kind of wink to the children of Israel that have been brainwashed and lied to since the transatlantic slave trade. Let me be clear. Judaism is a man-made construct. God didn't give the children of Israel religion. He gave them laws, statutes, and commandments to abide by as his chosen nation. Being a Hebrew Israelite is not a religion. It's a birthright, a lifestyle, if you will. So this whole concept you mentioned about Judaism having a strong matrilineal system is faulty and not rooted in anything that can be backed by Torah. Lastly, by grace and mercy of the Most High, he didn't just reveal that E1B1A is the real Y DNA haplotype of the children of Israel and the seed of Jacob. I also discovered that the female mitochondrial version of E1B1A is a female haplotype L3E. They have the same exact migrational pattern, starting in the quote-unquote Middle East or Northeast Africa. As a matter of fact, one of the very few DNA companies who told the truth about the origin of L3E stated, quote, maternal haplogroup L3E migration origin. Haplogroup originated about 45,000 years ago in Northeast Africa or Israel, then spread south with the migration of Bantu-speaking people over the past 4,000 years. Example populations, African Americans and Bantus. There you go. Either way, I've been able to prove on the father and mother side that the world, as well as my people, have been deceived, misled, and outright lied to about who the real Jews are. And the sad thing is that the people standing with the fake Jews are in danger of losing their salvation and potentially going to hell with them, because Christ stated out of his own mouth, John 4:22, salvation is of the Jews, the real ones, that is. Okay, I won't be able to continue this build, but you're more than welcome to stick around and get in some knowledge via my various teaching videos. Nice building with you, something I actually never do. Take care and all the best to you.